So let's talk about how exactly do you control reality? Because that is the point of spirituality. To borrow a definition from my good friend Nero Knowledge, who recently sent me a signed copy of his new book, which I am thoroughly enjoying. To borrow his definition, spirituality without the ability to control your reality is vanity. Maybe I changed the word or two, but that's essentially the message. And that is what spirituality is. Spirituality is not living your life a certain kind of way. Spirituality is not about how to become a better person. Spirituality is not about living according to a certain set of moral laws or commandments. None of that is spirituality. Spirituality is coming to the awareness that God resides within you, that you are a manifestation, an individualized perspective of the eternal divine mind, and with that have all the creative power of God. You are the master of your reality. You get to determine your experience of reality. That is what spirituality is. You can use this awareness to accomplish any form of reality. For instance, if I wanted to create a reality of chaos and anarchy, well, then I would align my frequency to a world of chaos and anarchy, and I would be able to achieve that with a high degree of effectiveness because I understand the relationship between the spiritual and the physical realm. In the same way, I can use that awareness to align myself to a frequency of peace, tranquility, gratitude, and happiness, kindness, and love, and that will be my experience of reality. One is neither good nor bad. It's just like how woodworking, for instance, or architecture you can use, or engineering. What is engineering? Engineering isn't making things that better the lives of humans. Engineering is the process by which you create mechanisms that produce a desired result. That is engineering. You can use engineering to create a bridge that allows people to get over a lake. You can use engineering to build homes for the homeless. You can also use engineering to create nuclear bombs and eviscerate entire cities. Engineering isn't about getting a specific kind of result. It's about getting a desired result and understanding how to go from A to B, how to go from A to Z, how to accomplish that result. And that is what spirituality is. Spirituality is not anything else but that. That is what spirituality is. It is the art, it is the science of controlling your reality using your consciousness by first coming to the awareness that your reality is being created by your consciousness. Now, of course, I have both a 3 day and a 3 month challenge that you can participate in to prove that to yourself. And that's up to you if you are going to go on that journey. But assuming that you have already accepted that your physical reality is being created by your consciousness, let's dive into how you do that. All it takes in order to experience any reality, any version of reality that you desire to experience, is you must align yourself energetically with that version of reality. You can think of it like this. Now, I am not saying that this is exactly how it is, but you can think of it like this. This will help you to actually get your desired result. You can think of the universe as a multi-dimensional radio bandwidth, or you know how when it comes to cable and television you have multiple channels. They all exist simultaneously, but you can only ever be on one frequency if we're going to use the radio analogy, or on one channel if we're using the TV analogy. They all already exist. Any version of reality that you can fathom, that you can conceptualize, think of the multiverse from the Avengers. Any version of reality that you can conceptualize, you can access. But you must align energetically, you must shift your frequency to be in alignment with that version of reality that you wish to experience. Essentially, you need to feel like the version of yourself that is already living in that reality. And at that point, your external reality, or what you perceive as the external reality, because in all reality, the external world is just a projection of your mind. But what you perceive as the external reality, the world that your avatar is navigating, will start to conform to the frequency that you've aligned yourself to. The conviction with which you are able to do this will determine how quickly you transition from one radio frequency to another, or from one channel to another. Things will shift in a gradual way, and they will shift in a way that makes sense. It's all going to make sense because you're not actually the one doing it, right? Your conscious mind, what you perceive as you, it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It has nothing to do with what you perceive as your intellectual or mental capabilities. This is the power of God at work, which your subconscious mind is directly tapped into. That's why it's not really about what you think, it's about how you feel. However, our thoughts and what we think and the ideas we entertain and how we use our imagination, these are precisely the tools that will help us to manipulate the way we feel. That is the point of using your imagination and imagining a version of reality that you actually want to occupy, so that you can start to feel the emotions that would be associated with that reality if that was your current present reality. That's how it works. It's very simple. So, for instance, if I was someone who was broke and I wanted to manifest or align with a version of reality where I now had money, I would imagine what it would feel like to have money. What are the emotions that I would feel? In all reality, the emotions that I would feel if I was a broke person, speaking for myself personally, the biggest driving factor or biggest driving thing for me wanting money when I was broke was a sense of peace and stability. And so, if I can occupy a state of peace and stability, well, then my financial situation would then have to reflect a reality where I am at peace and feel stable with whatever is in my bank account. Thus, the universe will then shift and move things in the most perfect and logical way to make that a reality, to make what I feel on the inside be reflected in a logical and harmonious way on the outside. That is the process of manifestation. You got to be the person you need to be in order to experience the reality you want to experience. The reason you do not have the things you want is because you're not the person you need to be in order to have them. It's that simple. The confident guy gets the girl. The guy doesn't become confident because he gets the girl. It's that simple. You don't become better at basketball because you win games. You win games because you're good at basketball. It's all about you. It's all about who you are. That is what the universe is doing. The universe is just constructing the context. It is constructing the environment to facilitate the story that you tell yourself about yourself. And so if you tell yourself you are a certain kind of way, if you believe you are a certain kind of way, well, then the universe needs to construct a reality or construct an environment to be the context, to be the substrate, to be the foundation on which that idea of yourself can take root. And so if you start to shift your frequency and align with a different story, a different belief about who you are and what you are, well, then the universe will start to shift. Things will start to move in what you perceive as the external to facilitate this new belief that you have. And the rate at which that new experience of reality takes root is determined by your conviction and how convinced you are and how emotionally charged these new beliefs are. Now, it is a fact that it is no more difficult to materialize a reality where you're a billionaire than it is to materialize a reality where you have an extra $10,000 in your bank account. For the universe itself, it is not harder. What, however, is more difficult is for you to believe it. That's what makes it more difficult. It is a matter of your faith. I'm going to appeal to a story from the Bible. There is a story in the Bible where the disciples are faced with a young boy who has come to have demons cast out of him. Now, the disciples have been casting out demons left and right for however long they've been doing it. But this man, he brings his son who is possessed by demons, and he asks the disciples to cast out the demons. And they ask Jesus, when they're incapable of doing that, they ask Jesus, why were we incapable of casting out the demons? And Jesus says it is because of lack of your faith. That's simple. It's also not just a lack of the faith of the disciples, but I believe it was also a commentary on the lack of the faith of the boy and the father. So because they put all of the, naturally, they put the power of God in the hands of Jesus. If you look throughout the Bible, you will see time and time again, anytime people are healed by Jesus, Jesus says it is your faith that has healed you. But their faith, of course, was strengthened by the miracles they saw Jesus perform, or they saw God perform through Jesus. But we also see in the Bible, when Jesus was trying to perform miracles in his hometown, he was incapable of doing that because of a lack of the faith of the people in his hometown, because they were too familiar with him. Which is why many of us know what it feels like to try and give advice to a close friend or family member and they don't take it. But if that same advice came from some stranger they never met on YouTube, all of a sudden it's the greatest piece of advice they've ever heard. And that's when Jesus said, a prophet is not without honor except amongst his own people. I'm paraphrasing here. Now, why do I quote the Bible so much? I spent 3 years of my life absolutely dedicated to Christianity and the Bible. And so it's what I'm familiar with. Someone was saying, why don't you quote the Quran? Nigga, I was never a fucking Muslim. If I was a Muslim, I would be quoting the Quran left, right, and center. Because if you use ChatGPT to look for these principles in the Quran, you can find sutra or surah. See, I don't even know what the actual terminology is for the verses in the Quran. You can find shit that matches it, especially in hadith. Same thing in Zoroastrianism. Same thing in the Hermetic religions of the ancient Egyptians. It's just that I never fucking did that shit. I completely put my entire life on pause for 3 years to pursue Jesus and the religion of Christianity and have a relationship with God and all that fucking shit. And, I came out the end and deconstructed it. And look, that's fine. You can be a Christian. I love Christians. I have no problem with that. But please don't get shit twisted. The Bible didn't teach me any of this shit. Life taught me this shit. Listening to actual people who understand the spiritual, they help me to realize what we all already have inside of us. You don't need me to teach you this shit. All of this is inside of you. All I do is wake you up. I get you to start seeing the patterns in your own life, and then you will start to teach yourself, which is why in the Bible, Jesus says that no one will need to teach you. Nobody does need to teach you. In fact, it will get to a point where you will be so tapped into the source that continuing to listen to other people try and explain this shit will become confusing. I barely listen to, when I first started on this journey, I was listening to guys like Neville Goddard. I was listening to my bro, Neuro Knowledge. I was listening to, there are a variety of pretty good guys, and they're all saying essentially the same thing. They just articulate it a little differently. And then one day it all clicks. It all fucking clicks, and you see all the patterns and everything makes sense, and it doesn't take long at all. And then now it's about trusting yourself. It's about trusting the process. It's about sticking with the process, proving it to yourself. And then once you have that evidence, once you have manifested shit in your own life, once you have held an energetic frequency consistently and long enough and see your actual reality conform to it, you will become a believer. You will understand that this is how the world works. But even more, the beautiful thing that I get as an advantage to me as someone who runs a reaction channel is I get to see the lives of other people. And I never, not once, ever do I see any of these metaphysical laws that govern reality ever be contradicted. It always goes the same way. Man feeds into negativity, more negativity happen. Man feeds into positivity, more positivity happen. People get mad at person, he doesn't give a fuck, nothing happens to him. People get mad at a person, he gives a big fuck, his life falls apart. Person complains a lot and believes that the course of his life is determined by external circumstances, his life is a living hell. The people who are the wealthiest and happiest are also the people who seem to not give a fuck at all about anything happening around them. They're completely focused on themselves. What you persist or what you resist persists, right? Dude tries to chase a girl runs away. Girl is not interested. Dude doesn't give a fuck about a girl comes to him. Why? Because it's not that he doesn't give a fuck that makes her come to him. It's that he's in a state of abundance. He's in a mental state where he takes her for granted. And anything you take for granted comes to you easily. And what are the things you take for granted? The things that you already possess. Which is why when you assume the feeling, the state of already having the thing you want, that's why it comes to you. Because the universe, it's not even that it comes to you. It already belongs to you in a different version of reality. All you've done is shift your frequency to that reality where it's already in your possession. That's all that's happening. Reality has to shift to match your internal state. That's how it works. So if you're in an internal state of abundance, thinking, man, I fuck bitches with ease, I bag bitches with ease, how would I feel if that was a reality? How would I move? How would I talk? What emotions would I feel? I would be, one, first and foremost, relaxed in regards to the topic of women. And then the external, presently, might be like reflecting a situation where you don't get bitches, but then it picks up, the universe picks up on the shift in your frequency and it starts to recalibrate and says, oh, this nigga just entered I get bitches energy. Now we gotta move shit around. And now fucking you're walking through the mall, you know this chick's staring at you, right? You go to a restaurant, waitress fucking flirting with you. You know what I'm saying? The girl at work who was never paying attention to you, now she is like touching you and, you know, inviting you places. That's it. That's all that happened. That's why you will see dudes go from dick riders to haters to meat riders back and forth, bro. That's the reason why you should never hate on anybody for anything, because you can have whatever you want. Anything you see somebody have, that is just evidence of the energetic state that they've been holding to consistently. If you want what they have, you just need to assume the same energetic state and you will have it. That's why jealousy and envy is a sin. It's fucking stupid. That's why stealing is a sin. It's fucking stupid. Why would you ever steal? You could have it. You already have it. You actually just need to align with the version of reality where it's in your possession and it will materialize in your hand. That's why killing is a sin. That's why all of these things, anything that communicates a sense of powerlessness, anything that communicates a sense of you can't create it, you can't bring it into existence, and so you have to use force and coercion and deceit and manipulation to try and take it from someone else. That is you confessing to the universe that you don't even realize that you are but another manifestation of God, as we all are. And as the Bible put it, we were made in the image of God, right? But Muslims are, you know, a Muslim, a Christian, an atheist, they are all equally connected to God. It's just a matter of awareness. It is just a matter of awareness. We are all actively manifesting our entire reality, whether you realize it or not. And that's why you'll see people, mostly atheists and Christians, will sometimes come in the comment section and they'll say bullshit. But notice not a single one of them ever comments that the things that I am teaching are harmful or bad. Why? Because I teach peace, right? I say if everybody manifested a world of peace, we would have literal global world peace within like 6 months. If everybody aligned to the frequency of being at peace, it would be that easy, that simple. And so, what are they going to rail about in my teachings? My teachings are biblical. People, they have Christians now. I got a lot of Christians that fuck with me heavily. It's even these teachings, and they'll say, "Oh, you sound more Christian than when you were a Christian," which is hilarious. But what it is I sound more like Jesus. It's not that I sound more Christian. I just sound more like Jesus because I get it now. That's why you have some Christians that are called red letter Christians. They only care about the words of Jesus. They don't give a fuck about anything else that was said in the Bible. Not that there aren't plenty of other valuable things in other portions of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, to be real with you. But there's also a lot of stuff that is just a product of the culture of that time. And, not everything in it is for the sake of empowering you spiritually. That's the harsh reality of it. But we don't need to get into all of that. Right? It's just that once you understand how the universe works, then when you read these spiritual books, the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, which is the Hindu scriptures, right? The Hermetic writings, the writings of Zoroastrianism, you'll be able to pick out the shit that is actually real from the shit that is just clearly irrelevant to the science of spirituality. Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's sick. And so that's how you control your reality, guys. It's all about aligning. And how do you do it? You use your imagination. Your imagination is the tool by which you will manipulate your reality. Because you first need to imagine the reality that you want to experience. And you have plenty of experience doing that. You do it with fear all the time. Most people have been doing it with fear their entire life. Right? Like, imagine a cockroach crawling on the back of your neck right now. Ooh, all of us were able to do that with ease. And you're like, ooh, right? I don't know why, but it's actually, I do know why. It's because we live in a reality or a society, this version of reality that we're all tapped into this frequency, is one that thrives on negativity. And so we have a lot of experience using our imagination to imagine shit we don't want to happen. But we have been so discouraged from being optimistic and positive and imagining shit that we actually want to happen and to dream. You're called unrealistic, you're called delusional if you think to yourself that you can be anything and do anything. And so we're not encouraged to exercise our imagination muscles in positive ways. But you can do it. In the same way how you can imagine that bad thing, now I want you to imagine you sitting in a Lamborghini. You're in your driveway. Think about wherever your car is parked. If you don't have a car, think about the driveway of the residence that you're currently occupying. Now imagine yourself walking out of the door to where that car would be parked. And imagine a Lamborghini, whatever color you like. I'm going to imagine a red one. Opening that door, sitting inside, sitting down, gripping the wheel. And now you're about to go to Whole Foods. Let's pull up to Whole Foods. How are you going to feel when you pull up to Whole Foods in that Lamborghini? Now, that feeling you're feeling is not actually the feeling of owning a Lamborghini. It is. But what you're really feeling is confidence. What you're really feeling is a sense of accomplishment. a sense of even importance. And so that's why, me personally, I don't actually spend a lot of spiritual energy trying to materialize specific situations like that. I focus on the core emotions, like being at peace, and then allow the universe to align a frequency that manifests peace in every area of my life. And it's also an incredible faith builder because as you shift to that state of being at peace, you're going to start to notice peace, a more peaceful reality manifesting immediately, within days, within months, you'll be over them, like super convinced. But how long is it going to take you to summon the amount of conviction that you need to actually materialize a Lamborghini in your garage if you're starting from zero? If you're starting from someone with little to no faith at all in your manifestation abilities or in the laws of metaphysics, to trust them enough to apply them consistently. That's why so many people fail and never materialize anything, because they hear about this shit and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to manifest $1 million in my bank account. And what they end up doing is living their lives as they normally do, but then maybe block out segments out of their day to just visualize them having $1 million. But they don't walk around 24/7 in this state of, I have $1 million. They don't feel that way. And they have all these things reminding them that that's not true. Their bank account, the car they drive, where they live, the overdue bills, the past due bills, and all that shit fucks with their confidence, fucks with their faith, fucks with their conviction. And then they just, it all messes up. But peace is a lot easier to maintain. It's a lot easier to just focus on not even just peace, any core emotion. You just ask yourself, what am I manifesting right now? What emotional state, what energetic state I'm in? Because your energetic state is communicated by your emotions. That's how you know what frequency, what energetic state you're in. And so you can look internally and ask yourself, how do I feel right now? Am I at peace? Am I at peace? What does it mean to be at peace? It means to not want anything. It means to not need anything. Am I in an emotional place right now where I don't need anything? Nothing's bothering me. And then you look and you search inside and you try to find it if there is something that is bothering you. Did you just have a fight with your girl? That's bothering you. Well, ask yourself, what would need to happen? What would my reality need to be right now that I would no longer be bothered with my girl? I'd be at peace. And then you would maybe imagine a situation where your girl is being very respectful to you. Maybe you were bothered because she was being rude to you. Well, just imagine a reality where you've already made up and she said to you, I appreciate you so much. I love you and I respect you. And I am going to go forward respecting you to the utmost. Imagine if that actually just happened. How would you feel? How would you be? How would you But this is the big thing. If your actions don't align with your imagined reality, then you're not really dialed in. And so you can't imagine that and then pass her in the hallway and give her the cold shoulder. No, how would you actually interact with her had she just done that thing, just made up with you in that way? And then that's how you would interact with her. You have to be consistent, and it will make the feeling stronger. And then things will start to shift. And she will start to change in behavior. But the big thing is, even if you don't see an immediate change in her attitude and how she behaves, the thing you're focused on is your internal state. And so you pass her and you try to have a pleasant demeanor about you. Maybe you give her a smile. Maybe you ask her if she needs anything to eat because you're about to go run out and get something to eat. And then she's like, no, gives you that attitude. No. Okay, for sure. Well, I'm gonna go hit Chipotle. I'll be right back. And then you're driving to Chipotle again. And then the thought comes up again of how she spoke to you earlier that day. And you start to be bothered again. That's when, oh, I'm losing my peace. I'm not at peace anymore. And then you dial back in to that imagined reality. What would you just ask yourself these two questions on a consistent basis? What am I manifesting right now? That's how you tap into the emotional state that you're in. What emotions? What is the dominant emotion that I am feeling right now? Okay, boom, I've identified that. What is causing me to feel that way? Boom, my perception of this certain situation, this certain aspect of my reality. Okay, what would my reality need to be in order for me to be in a state of peace, to not need anything, to not want anything? Boom, these factors would need to change. All right, let me imagine what that would be like. What would that feel like? Now you just try and hold that again. And then you can combine that with doing other things in the physical realm that help to relax you and help you maintain that state of peace, using the smile technique, the most powerful tool that I have found thus far in my spiritual journey in stopping negative thoughts, negative feelings, and redirecting you into a state of gratitude. I talk about that in one of my previous videos. You can go ahead and check that out. I'll put it up in the corner for you to go and see. But yeah, guys, that's how you control your reality. This was a very powerful video, and I hope it helps.